Welcome back to Parent Squad. The primary election is over and now the focus shifts to November. Local school board seats will be on the ballot across the state. And if you've ever thought, what about me? Well, now is the time to consider a run. MJ Slaby from Chalkbeat joins me now to talk how to run for school board. I'm sure at some point parents are looking at what's happening and they might want to change it or might have better ideas, or you feel an urge to get involved, but maybe you actually take action on that, maybe you don't. So let's talk about it. What exactly does a school board member do?
Yeah, when you think about the school board, it's really the high level district stuff, right? So we're thinking about things like they hire the superintendent, they might vote on those tax increases or referendums that you also see on the ballot, whether or not to do that, policies, things that might impact students or staff or technology. So it's really all that high level stuff of running a school district.
Yeah, it seems like they're responsible for a lot of different things when it comes to our schools and what happens with our kids. So if someone wants to consider a run, then what are the first steps for that?
Yeah, well, I think it's first you have to think about, is public office for me? Do you have all your questions answered there? And then I would say look into how your school board works. Every school board is a little different. Some of them have all at-large members. Some of them have members that represent like a specific part of the school district. So look into how it works and who's up for election when, right? Everyone's not up for election at the same time. And then after that is everyone's favorite, paperwork.
Get your paperwork together. So I love what you're saying, though. I don't want to gloss over that. Asking, like, is this for me? Is a leadership role for me? Especially when it comes to our school board and our kids, it's kind of a thankless job, just because it's like you're responsible for so much, but someone's always going to be unhappy no matter what you do, which I guess is common for a lot of leadership roles.
Yeah.
But especially when it comes to our kids, things are really charged. What's the deadline to file for candidacy?
Yeah, so the filing window starts on May 19th, and you have to have those forms in at noon on June 9th. Oh, I'm sorry, it's June 18th.
June 18th, okay.
Yeah, so May 19th to June 18th at noon. That's very important. You got to make sure you get that 12:05, not going to work.
Okay, there you go. And you mentioned that they would need to fill out forms, a potential candidate. Are you familiar with what forms that could be?
Yeah, so there's two main forms. One is just your nomination form. So that's the one where you collect signatures. And that's going to vary a little bit from district to district on the rules. So you need to make sure to check on the rules. But generally, it's about 10 signatures of people who live in the school district. And then the second one is a more economic form where candidates will say, basically, this is how I make my money.
Okay. 10 signatures is not a ton.
Yeah.
I'm actually surprised at how little that is, because that kind of makes it accessible to everyone, which I think is
Absolutely. And
cool.
like I said, it's typical, so it might vary a little bit, but in general, 10 signatures. It might be all people that live in a certain part of the school district if it's a district seat, so that's why you really got to look into the details. But yeah, like you said, pretty accessible, 10 signatures.
That's good. All right, and because of a controversial new state law, there will be partisan races for the first time. So what does that mean for candidates, partisan races?
Yeah, so that means that when you go to say, okay, I want to run for school board, you have three options. You can declare a party affiliation, you can run as an independent, or you can run as nonpartisan, which until this year, all school board elections were nonpartisan.
Okay.
So you can pick between, the different options, and then it will say after your name on the ballot which one you picked.
Okay.
And so it's important to remember that because that's how it works and it's not a primary system, you could have multiple Republicans or multiple Democrats running against each other. So this is not a straight ticket voting situation, right? Like you could have multiple people of the same party. So that's important for candidates to know, but also voters, right? That you can't just vote straight ticket for a school board. You got to look at the individual candidates and pick.
Yeah, I can see why that could be controversial, a controversial change, because it's like you would think, well, why would that be in our school system and be necessary? But when you think about some of the issues that our society differs on today, then it's like, oh, well, I could see where that would come into play.
Yeah, and there was definitely back and forth. Like the people who advocated for this change said, it's about giving voters more information and we can't ignore the politics that are there. And the people who were against it said, well, like, wait a minute, are we inserting more politics into schools? So it was definitely a back and forth. It was a change that took a while to get through the State House and,
Ultimately, they decided to add it.
Right, they decided to add it, but in this way, where it's not a primary candidate, right? We don't have school board primaries. It's more you just get to declare and it'll be after your name.
Interesting.
So.
All right, can someone serve on a school board as a teacher or if they don't live in the district?
So the short answer is no. If you're a district employee, you can't be on the school board too, but that wouldn't stop a district employee from running, right? And then maybe stepping down from their job to then be able to fill that school board seat. And you do have to live in the school district in order to be on that school board. And sometimes if it's a school board where they have seats that represent specific parts of the district, you have to live in that part too. So it's important to take a look, is this an at-large seat? Is this a seat that, represents maybe like the southwest corner of my school district, and do I live there? So you have to live in the district you're representing.
Not atypical, but
Yeah.
read the fine print for sure. Is it expensive to run for an office like this, a seat like this? How much does it cost?
So there's no filing fees. So the short answer is no. However, candidates typically are raising money for things like signs, right, and handouts and flyers, and we have seen in recent years more money go into school board elections. The other thing to keep in mind there is the more money, yet again, more paperwork. So if a candidate raises over $500, there's going to be another form or things that they'll have to fill out in order to say like this is where the money is coming from.
Oh,
So.
wow.
Yeah, so the short answer is no money, but you typically do see money going into school board races just like other elections.
Yes, and especially what we just saw with this last, the primary election. So,
Yeah.
Okay, and then is this position paid or school board members paid?
Yeah, so school board members typically get a stipend, and that stipend, it's very specific. It is up to 10% of the lowest starting salary for a teacher in that district.
Okay, up to 10%
yes.
of that. Okay, and what
So-
would they use that on, like travel or?
I mean, I think that would just be sort of a service stipend, right? Like they would be able to use that for their role, but this isn't like a full-time job in the sense of the pay, right?
Right.
Obviously, school board members put in the hours, they have long meetings, they're there at night, but in terms of the pay to that person, you're looking, like I said, up to 10% of the lowest starting salary for a teacher in that district.
Okay, for sure a service role. And if you're thinking about running, hopefully this answers some of the preliminary questions, but what can people do if they want to learn more?
Yeah, I would recommend the Indiana School Boards Association. They have lots of information on their website. They're going to be having webinars throughout May and June to talk to candidates and potential candidates and get all those questions answered.
Yeah, I love that we're making this information accessible. I think there are a lot of people, you want the right people in our leadership roles, and a lot of people think, well, why not me? Why couldn't I do it?
Absolutely.
Or why should I do it? So MJ, thanks for being here.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Thanks for sharing more.